All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight to talk about the health professions application. I can't believe that we are already talking about entry year 2027, but we are ready um, to get started with this. So, just for everyone's reference of when we say entry year 2027 or EY27, that refers to the year of which you will enter into health professions school, just for everyone's reference so that we are on the same page. Okay, so who we are in pre-prof. My name is Davina Cowell, and I'm the director of the office, and I'm joined here by all of our advising team. I'm excited to have everyone. Hopefully you've met with one of us. If you're at this point where you're applying, and if you haven't, you will meet with one of us in the next few months to talk about what your plans are. But this is our team. We're really excited to be working with you and to help you in this next step of your journey. Okay, so our plans for tonight. We are going to discuss the application timeline and what that looks like. How do you know if you're ready to apply this cycle? We'll also discuss what the health professions application is, or the HPA for short. What's included in HPA that our office pre-prof requires. We'll also discuss what the committee letter is, what you need to do to get a committee letter, and what that process looks like. And we'll also discuss how to access and use SurveyMonkey Apply, which is the platform that we use for the HPA. Okay, so you're going to see this throughout the presentation, and I think this is something important to just note. You'll also have access to this recording that we'll post on our YouTube page, and we also have this timeline available in our applicant resources and materials. But this essentially is an application timeline, and what things will look like before you submit your primary application and after you submit your primary application. And so we are here in November at the applicant kickoff season. And you can see throughout the application timeline, the suggestions in black are are those that are happening throughout the cycle that really covers different things that you'll do in the application process. And then the red are specific, a lot of the specific dates for us and deadlines that you should be aware of throughout your time. So right now we're in November. As we head into December, over January and February, you'll begin working on that health professions application that opens through SurveyMonkey Apply. So that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks as we enter into December, but that won't be available until December because a lot of times we do get that question about when this will become available after we have this meeting today, and that will become available in December. Thank you so much for putting that in the chat. Okay, so we're going to move on to how do you know if you're ready to apply this cycle?
Yes, hi, I'm Alex Early, one of the advisors, and I'm going to talk a little bit about readiness this evening. Okay, so if you've attended a pre-health 201, you may have seen this graph or something similar to it. And so it is describing how to become a compelling and distinct applicant. And the importance of this diagram is to really showcase how all of these pieces come together holistically to create an ideal and strong applicant. So as you see that research and discovery and scientific inquiry piece, community service and additional experiences, which include paid employment as well as your hobbies, your metrics, so your GPA and your standardized test scores, as well as clinical exposure and your experiences such as shadowing and patient-facing experiences. And so if you think of the idea of intersectionality, think of how all of these identities and components can overlap to create a strong applicant. And now I'm going to go over some questions that you should consider before applying, and also maybe even talk to with an advisor, talk through with an advisor, I should say. And so the first question is, are you doing more than just checking boxes? Are you being intentional about the experiences that you've immersed yourself in? If you are shadowing, are you actively observing and seeing how medical professionals interact not only with patients, but also with other care team members? As well as community service. I often hear, how can I get involved with community service? Think about your hobbies and really go from there. If you're someone who enjoys maybe teaching or tutoring, find ways to get into community service that way and be intentional about these experiences versus thinking of it from the lens of what are schools looking for? Next, are you in a position to apply without a bridge year? Have you hit some of these goals that you wanted to hit prior to applying? Do you feel that you're where you want to be with your GPA? Have you met with an advisor and talked about where you are with your hours versus suggested hours? And do you feel just emotionally ready to enter medical school through as a junior and starting right after graduation? So, are you ready to apply as a junior, or do you want to take at least one, if not more, bridge or gap years? Have you incorporated feedback in a way that has helped you ready yourself for the application cycle? And that feedback may be from advisors or it may be from your mentors, a PI, someone that you've spoken to that has some experience in the medical field, maybe someone that you've shadowed. But have you taken criticism and feedback, incorporated it into your experiences to ready yourself? Can you obtain strong letters of recommendation from faculty, supervisors, and collaborators who can speak of your competencies? It is important to think of who you want to write your letters of rec. We really do look for quality over quantity. We often get asked, if I have 6 letters of rec, is that going to make me stand out? And the answer is we would rather see 4 really strong letters than 6 letters that have kind of been thrown together. And so when you ask your advisor who should write your letter of rec, think about who knows you the best. And we understand that there are times, especially at a university such as Hopkins, where the class sizes are large, it can be tough to try to build a rapport. But if you're in classes right now or even next semester, it's never too late to reach out and connect. Even if you're someone who is an alum, it is okay to reach back out to a professor from a year or two ago and state how you knew them, what class you were in, what grade you received. But you really do want to pick those that can speak about you in a professional manner. What makes you a distinct applicant? And that's a question that I suggest definitely chatting with an advisor about because there are so many components that make someone a distinct applicant. And so, really honing in on your strengths and also things that you may want to work on can really help you to answer this question before you apply. Why do you want to be a physician, dentist, or physician scientist? So, kind of going back to that why medicine. And also, what has impacted your journey along the way? Maybe you had a rapport built with a patient in one of your clinical experiences that really solidified that you want to be a physician, or maybe you had an awesome PI that inspired you to become a physician scientist. But really thinking about your why and maybe even the population that you want to serve in the future could be really helpful as you're thinking about your application cycle, especially when you're writing your personal statement in the future. Will you be able to write about experiences that speak of areas such as teamwork, leadership, diversity, resilience, adaptability, and critical thinking? And so oftentimes students will chat with us in our appointments about, I don't really think I have much teamwork. Well, have you ever been in a group project? Are you part of an athletics team, a dance team? Are you in any orgs on campus? Drawing from those experiences that may seem small are really important. In terms of leadership, you don't all have to have an e-board position. Just leading a fundraiser or leading an event is also really, really crucial. Sometimes we hear that clinical experiences or research labs don't work out. How can you draw from resilience and talk about what you learned from that experience, or how did you adapt to a new lab or a new experience? And also critical thinking. How did you think on your toes in certain situations, whether it was in or out of the classroom? Do you have experiences that demonstrate exposure to the medical field or clinical settings? We oftentimes talk about clinical in terms of hours and how many hours we should have, but it's really important to be able to draw back on the experiences as well and think about what have I actually learned during this time, whether you're shadowing or you're volunteering at MedStar or you're a scribe. Have I been exposed to the medical field or clinical settings that have solidified that this is the path for me or for you? And do you have experiences demonstrating how you've served the community? And so, again, going back to not just checking a box, really thinking about populations either in your hometown or home country or even in the beautiful city of Baltimore. How can you show that you have a commitment to serving and to just understanding people and building rapport on a different level? And so these are definitely some questions that you want to reflect upon before you get into the application cycle in a few months. This is an amazing assessment, and it is really thinking about your readiness to apply. We are able to give you this document in a one-on-one advising session, but this goes through questions such as I'm able to talk about topics trending in the medical field. And if you select mostly ones and twos in this assessment, it may be wise to give yourself more time before applying to health profession schools. But if you've selected mostly threes and fours, you're doing a great job and keep up the good work. And again, this is a tool that can be worked on with an academic advisor just to see where you are and where there are some areas to grow and improve. Also, if you're having a challenge with determining your readiness, definitely make an appointment with an advisor. I chat with students who are like, I'm on the fence. I might be EY27, it may be EY28. It is okay to not know right now. And again, this is a great tool to help you to decide. And now we're going to go into professional readiness. And so when we talk about professional readiness, it's more than just, can I enter professional settings and conduct myself in a professional manner? We think about your GPA and your standardized tests. And so if you want to talk about metrics specifically or average metrics, definitely attend a pre-health 201 if you have not already. And also talk further with an academic advisor in an individual appointment regarding SATs or ideal SATs for certain schools. Also, the MSAR, the Medical School Admissions Requirement Guide, is really, really helpful. That's also something that you can chat with an advisor about in an appointment. It's important to note that medical schools will be assessing your professional readiness through your academic metrics. And so keep that in mind. If your GPA is not where you'd like for it to be, there are options for you. And then we look at the degrees of experiences, observer versus active involvement versus an instrumental role in creating impact. And so, uh, in particular, medical schools like to see that applicants who've had meaningful patient exposure and direct patient engagement, and that can be through paid or volunteer work and can occur in a variety of clinical settings, including hospitals, community health clinics, and hospice care, clinical research where you're getting patient forms, vitals, etc. But they do want to see that you actually have put some effort into being involved in your experiences versus kind of taking a backseat approach and just strictly observing. And again, remember the importance of going beyond just observing in clinical experiences. Even in shadowing, it's okay to have conversations with your physician. Once you kind of check the temperature of, is this a physician that's open to kind of chatting during procedures or afterwards? But yeah, definitely go ahead and get out of that back seat, and that's the best way to learn. Again, patient-centered exposure, having that clinical experience and direct patient engagement, really understanding the importance of building a rapport with patients because that is going to be what you're doing for the rest of your life in this field. Again, going back to that commitment to community service, can you articulate the importance of community service? Again, not looking at it from a lens of just something that has to be done versus the importance of making an impact in roles in the community. can you go back and look at the core competencies and kind of articulate how you have exemplified them in your experiences? And so, for example, do you have any stories of challenges or stories of resiliency? And can you provide examples? Because those will be questions that you will be coming across in the next year or so. Again, thinking of things that seem like negatives and turning them into positives. Maybe you didn't do as well in a course. How did you bounce back? Did you utilize Pilot or the Learning Den? Again, maybe you didn't have the best experience with a PI or a lab. How did you bounce back? What did you learn? Did you learn to advocate for yourself? Or did you learn maybe the types of research that you're interested in? And so, thinking back around the last 3 to 4 years about stories of resiliency is also really important. And again, expected, relevant, and supportive letters of recommendation. You want to, if you're using, or when you're utilizing faculty, you don't want to utilize faculty from a course where you maybe didn't show up and have the best attendance or maybe didn't get the best grade. You want to pick those that can really support your application and will write about your strengths in a positive way. And again, choose evaluators that can speak to your experience. And we do advise, and I believe it's guide two, that you send a resume to your letters, your evaluators, I'm sorry, and let them know what you've been up to. Sometimes it's not enough to just say, hey, can you write me a letter? Especially when they're not sure of what you've been up to since you took their class. And so fill them in, let them know what you're working on and even what your goals may be in the future with medicine. And now I'm going to pass it off to Miss Zuri.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Ms. Zoria here. I'm going to talk about what the health professions application is. And so the professions application, for short, HPA, moving forward, is an internal application that we use here specifically for our Hopkins undergraduate students who are interested in receiving a committee letter from us. And so we are able to, and we will explain what exactly the committee letter is and its components as well later. But first, we want you to understand what the HPA is and how it is utilized in this process. And so the health professions application, I would say, is a parallel to helping you as an applicant prepare for your primary application to whatever health professions program you are looking to apply to. This application will be accessible through the platform SurveyMonkey Apply, which we will refer to as SMA. The SMA platform will be provided. There will be a link provided where you create an account and you register and you gain access to the full application components, and which will include various open-ended questions as well as an opportunity for you to enter your list of experiences and such that summarizes you as an applicant. We then in turn take this HPA and utilize it to write your committee letter. And essentially, we hope that you utilize it, one, to prepare yourself for your primary app, but also to communicate your story, your narrative, skills developed, knowledge developed as well, and your why, insert medicine, dentistry, etc. There is a fee that comes with the HPA. It is $85 for all applicants and it's non-refundable. However, if you receive FAP, which is the Financial Assistance Program through the WMC, or any other health professions central application system, you are able to get this fee waived or refunded or reimbursed, I should say. You still have to pay it upfront, but after you submit the application and you have provided us with the proper documentation, we have a process to reimburse you for that. So the HPA submission deadlines are for first-time applicants is March 30th, 2026, 11:59 p.m. You will have access to the platform SurveyMonkey Apply by first week of December. And so we will make sure that you have emails and we will send them out continuously on how to access the platform and submit, and also reminders about the deadline of the application. For reapplicants, those who have applied in a previous cycle or this last cycle and have decided to reapply, the application, the HPA deadline is May 30th, so that you have a little bit more time, understanding that there are nuances of being in the cycle and still making the decision of whether or not you're going to be a reapplicant. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the components of the HPA so that everyone has a bit more context about what to expect. So there are different sections in the HPA, and the first section, which is the introduction and application, is pretty straightforward, asking you demographic information as well as the health professions programs you intend to apply to. We do ask that you check all of the programs in which you are looking to apply to. There's even specific questions as it relates to are you applying to allopathic, osteopathic, podiatry, etc., other health professions, dentistry, or if you are applying to the Texas system, which is a different system. So if you're from Texas, obviously you probably are a little bit more versed in that, but those that are looking to, you might want to just revisit what the Texas residency requirements are before you pursue that. But know that we have options that you will select which application systems you will be pursuing. We will also ask aspects of your academic background, and this does include your status as an applicant, whether you are a first-time applicant, a reapplicant, MD, PhD, dentistry, etc. There are additional questions specifically as it relates to reapplicant dentistry and MD, PhD, where we ask you to answer additional questions for those areas. There is a tentative letters of recommendation section, and tentative is highlighted here because it is not written in stone, but it is an exercise to make sure that our current applicants are thinking about who they are going to ask letters of rec from. We have minimum requirements for the committee letter, which we will review. But you also want to start this process sooner than later and make sure, particularly if you're an alum and there has been some time since you've had conversations with faculty or past supervisors or PIs, that you allow them time to respond to you. And so we highly encourage that as you open up the HPA, that you go through this section as an exercise to make sure that you feel like you're choosing individuals who will be able to communicate about you and your experiences effectively. There's also a work and activities section, and there's more detail to come, essays, self-assessment, and competency sections. This is a quick little formula to help applicants know if they are a first-time or reapplicant. We know that it can get a little confusing, particularly if you've done the HPA before, but you did not submit a primary application, you are still considered a first-time applicant. So please review this, screenshot it, and make note of it so that when you go through the HPA, you know what status to check. So this is a quick glance at what the SMA system looks like in the HPA portion for the tentative letter of rec section. Here, as you can see, we ask you to indicate the first name, last name, relationship, position, institution, organization, and we ask an open-ended question about why you have chose this person so that you can critically think about who you are asking recommendations from. There is no slot in the tentative letter of rec section for email because this is not where you request the letter of rec from your letter writer, and that is intentional. So remember, in the HPA, the tentative letter of rec section is an exercise and a preparation for you to think about your letters of recommendation, but it is not where you will request it. We will go more in detail and step by step on how you will request letters of rec. The work and activities section, we have aligned this section with the AMCAS system character limits. We understand that for ACOMAs, which is DO, TMDSAS, dentistry, ADSAS might have different character limits, but generally speaking, they're about this. You might have to modify for room in those applications or reduce the amount of characters for some. And then you might have unlimited experience slots for some of those central application systems. However, for the purpose of the HPA, we have mimicked the AMCAS, which gives you 15 max experiences to list, with 700 characters being the character limit for 12 of the experiences, and 3 having an additional 1325 for most meaningful. The idea is for you to utilize this space to talk about how you've spent your time. That we ask that you not only communicate clear and concisely, but you do it in a paragraph format, not in bullet points. The whole point of this section is for you to use, whether you want to use narratives or communicate it in a more flowing sense of what your roles and responsibilities were, your lessons learned, your skills, competencies developed, connection to why medicine. Not every experience will have every aspect of like the why medicine aspect, but there are many of your experiences that should and will. So definitely think about putting some time into this section because it can directly impact the quality of your committee letter. So just like admissions teams that will be reviewing your application, we as the committee letter writers are using this to help us understand and evaluate skills gained, um, skills developed, knowledge developed, and competencies that you have strengthened as it pertains to your chosen health profession. So make sure that you take your time through this, not only for us, but also for you, because if you prepare this section well, it should be pretty much ready for your primary application to copy over. It is also a good tool to use in advising when you want to talk about how you're communicating about your overall why medicine, and you can bring these responses to advising sessions to have conversations about how to better articulate what you are trying to say. So we encourage you to utilize the HPA as direct preparation for your primary application. We have essays. There's question 1, 2, and 3. And essentially, these questions are asking you not just who you are, but also what motivates you. We hope that the questions are differentiated enough that you are able to see that question 1 focuses on who you like, your journey, your background, your identities, the influences that maybe you've had in your life that have led you to maybe choosing Hopkins as an institution and or pursued a specific major or area of interest. Maybe there are life events and people from birth to present day that have played an instrumental role in your life. And so you can use question 1 to give us an understanding of who you are. Question 2 is more geared towards what and who has shaped your understanding of medicine specifically and how you've developed your sense for serving others. So a lot of times applicants will use this space to talk about their experiences in general that has shaped their interest in medicine. Maybe these are experiential, some kind of summation, not delineated in the same way as you have in your list of experiences, but maybe moments moments of pivot or highlighted chapters of your life that really highlight where your understanding of serving and being in the medical and healthcare field really took form. So there's no right answer for these questions. This is really dependent upon your journey and your distance travel. Question three is an opportunity for you to communicate anything that you believe is would be helpful for us to know about your journey, and maybe also that you don't want to be communicated in your community letter. So we do give you a space to communicate things that have impacted you, but there are aspects or details of those experiences that you would prefer not be communicated. You are able to use this space. If there is nothing in your experience that don't you don't mind having mentioned, then you can leave this place blank. So you can definitely um, use it to the extent in which you believe it's necessary for you, but it is an optional section. There are additional essay questions about what is important to you and how have you grown. So we ask you about academics and additional context around personal challenges, things that help us understand how you overcame your resilience, any impactful experiences that maybe have um, that were lived that are part of your background and or identities that you've overcome, and so it's an opportunity for you to show resilience and growth mindset as well. We This section, the way that it's worded and the opportunity that we provide in the HPA is a lot like the impactful experience section in the primary application for AMCAS or other experience section in some of the other primary applications. So it is up to you how you want to utilize this. And we actually have some resources in the HPA that are hyperlinked for you to get a little bit more context on maybe how to approach this. But this is also a great thing to kind of talk out with an advisor during a session as well. And then we have a summary section, which is meant to provide you an opportunity to reiterate, highlight, and underscore any areas of your application that you would like emphasized and or honed in on in your committee letter. So you have control to some degree about how information is presented about you, particularly as it pertains to your unique backgrounds, your impactful experiences, and your distance travel. The last essay, oops, sorry, is a focused topic essay, and we give you some options here around leadership, academic interests, contributions to your community, and overcoming a challenge. And we are asking you to answer the question of what is important to you and how have you grown? And so from the options that we provide you, you are now going to um, communicate your experiences in your journey that you believe, that you perceive as important for admissions to consider when assessing you. This may very well be connected to your why. And so what we encourage students to understand is that there will be overlap when it comes to a lot of the sections that you are writing about yourself, but we encourage you and challenge you to not copy and paste and be repetitive. And so the goal is how could you reframe and restructure even while you're continuing to show the overlap in some of these areas. So really take time to think about how you communicate these things in your application.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the self-assessment. So you'll find this section in the HPA as well. And the self-assessment will help you to better understand how you've demonstrated your motivations and passions for your indicated health profession. So when you're thinking about your self-assessment, you want to think about how you've demonstrated what how you've demonstrated these different areas through your experience and how much you still need to develop in the areas of which health profession schools are looking for you to have had some experiences. So those relevant areas will be community service, clinical and medically relevant experiences, your research experiences, as well as your academic. Think about it as kind of needing receipts, right? Providing evidence that you have engaged in these areas and that you have developed competencies based off of your experiences in these areas. It can help to link back to your work and activities experience list, but again, don't copy and paste descriptions. It's important to think about showing and not telling. So giving details on your actions and processes are important throughout this process. So in thinking about where your strengths lie, thinking about your competencies, those can really help you to identify where your strengths are. So after choosing your competency and your strength, you want to explain how you've demonstrated those chosen competencies through active examples. If you're having some trouble with finding some active examples about the competencies or strength that you have selected, perhaps that's not the most developed competency or strength. And you may need to go back and revisit your activities to really think about what you have developed through those experiences that you've had. So don't reference the experience itself, but more of the competency from what was developed. So an example here would be oral communication. You could write, I was a tutor, volunteered with kids who have learning disabilities and communicating with patients in research. That encompasses essentially what you did, and that you also had, or that you demonstrated, or rather, that there was some oral communication as part of your experience as a tutor. But as you can see from the example below that, as early as I can remember, I've loved teaching. At 6, I taught my 4-year-old brother how to write in cursive. I have held a variety of teaching positions, working with children as young as second grade and as an advanced college students. Teaching at its core relies on effective communication, and I've learned to be effective in a variety of tricky situations, redesigning lesson plans to be virtual, catering to different learning styles, and even working with kids with learning disabilities. In my current job, I utilize similar strategies when obtaining informed consent from research participants to ensure that they fully understand all aspects of the study before agreeing to participate. So, as you can see, with the second writing here, this really does demonstrate that this person has the ability to work with people who are different from themselves. It also details how long they've been teaching and where their interest is. They've also communicated um, how they see this playing out in other roles. So not only have they learned this skill of effective communication in the teaching realm, but they've now used this skill and it's transferable to what they've been doing in their research lab or working with research participants. So from this example here, we've learned so much more about the applicant and really have an idea of how they're able to utilize communication. So they're not just telling us they're an effective communicator, they're showing us that they're an effective communicator. So the competencies you can find on the double AMC, and these are the competencies for medical school, but they do apply across the board to other health professions. They're really looking for you to develop the professional competencies of demonstrating a commitment to learning and growth, showing that you're culturally aware and have cultural humility through experiences that you have had with engaging with different cultures, that you have empathy and compassion, that you have an ethical responsibility to yourself and others, that you have gained interpersonal skills by working with others, demonstrating oral communication, reliability and dependability, that you are resilient and able to adapt to changing situations, that you are service oriented. You are going into a field in any of the health professions where you are looking to serve others, looking to serve your patients. So, are you committed to service? Have you demonstrated teamwork and an ability to work with others, as that is one of the critical skills that you'll have in any health profession? And then you have your science competencies, your development of your critical thinking, your quantitative reasoning, scientific inquiry, your ability to communicate through writing, and your understanding of human behavior and living systems. And for those of you who are applying to dental school, they also want to see a demonstration of manual dexterity. Now, again, through your experiences, you will be able to develop a lot of these different competencies, but you'll be able to see through like writing out your application, looking at your work and activities. There tends to be some competencies that are stronger and more well developed than others. And so, doing the self-assessment and really thinking about what you've developed based off of these competencies here will help you to better understand your strengths. So, institutional action. There is an institutional action on the AMCAS application, as well as the other health professions application, as well as the dental school. So, the institutional action, a single, isolated, relatively minor situation, will rarely keep an applicant from being considered for admission, but failure to disclose an incident might negatively impact your application. Remember, one of those competencies was an ethical responsibility to self and others, beholding, being accountable for your actions and really talking about what you've learned as a result of that is an important piece of the application if you have had an institutional action. So the AMCAS question on institutional action, um, ask you, were you ever the recipient of any institutional action by any college or medical school for unacceptable academic performance or conduct violation? That's important to note that this applies to both academic and conduct violations. Even though such action may not have interrupted your enrollment or required you to withdraw. You must answer yes, even if the action does not appear or has been deleted from your official transcripts due to institutional policy or personal petition. Um, so you must answer yes to this question if you have received an institutional action. But that AMCAS question actually, my apologies, has been updated, and I believe it's updated on the next slide, that if your institutional action has been expunged from your record, you do not have to say yes, answer yes to that question. That is something that has changed from last year to this year. So if you are speaking with past applicants and you're talking about an institutional action question, that is one main difference that has changed from last year's application or previous applications to this application. If the action was deleted, expunged, or otherwise removed from your record by the institution, you can select no to that institutional action question. Thank you for changing that slide. And please again note that institutional action refers to academic and conduct violations. And if you are not sure about whether or not you have a conduct violation or if it's been expunged or deleted or removed from your record, you can contact student conduct at jhu.edu to follow up on that.
All right, friends. So now let's talk about what is a committee letter. So think of your HPA and your committee letter as a complete combination. So attached at the end of your entire committee letter are going to be your individual letters of recommendation, which are listed in alphabetical order by the writer's last names. Over the summer, your individual letters of recommendation and committee letter are combined into one PDF, which we call the committee letter packet. Then that packet of letters and your committee letter are uploaded to the primary application services of your choice. So AMCAS, ACOMAS, TMD SAS, ADSAS. ADSAS is the dental application. The committee letter is in substitution of individual school letters of recommendation requirements. Your committee letter consists of our letter plus your individual letters of rec, and they are uploaded on behalf to your schools. So let's talk a little more about what is in the committee letter. So This is our committee letter is a way to introduce you to medical schools. It's an overview of you as an applicant. If you're in my office, I tell you that essentially your committee letter is akin to a cover letter for your application. We take the information you provide in your HPA and pull out parts mainly from your essays to compile your committee letter. It's essentially your story that you're providing for us, which we in turn share with the medical schools. So you get to control the narrative. And what that means is that what you put in your HPA is what goes on your committee letter. The committee letter is a good way to help contextualize your experiences. It's also a way to include experiences prior to college, like in high school, your life story, your family, your cultural background, your early pre-college experience. We can contextualize your growth, and we can also not mention things as well. So if there is something that you do not want us to talk about in your committee letter, we will let you know. Pardon me, I have a small human here. Give me 25. Okay, we had a spill. We're good. So a few other things as kind of a reminder. The HPA is an internal document. We do not share this with medical schools. We do not share this with dental schools. The only people that see it is the advising office. If I have any pre-vet or physician assistant students in the audience, you can use the HPA to prepare for your application, but your programs do not require a committee letter. My pre-vet students, due to the mechanisms of your application and not wanting to prevent you and other pre-vet requirement applicants from having issues meeting your requirements, we determined this would be the best course of action at the time. For my pre-PA students, PA programs don't accept committee letters. All right, so what do you need to do to get a committee letter? So these next two slides, I'm pretty much reading verbatim, which I know, ugh, but I'm reading these verbatim because they're really important. And this will hopefully help you understand what you need for the committee letter. So for my alumni in the audience, undergraduate alumni of Hopkins, and this is both Krieger and engineering, are eligible to participate in our process for 4 years post-graduation. This timeline refers to the 4 years from your undergraduate graduation to the time you matriculate in a health profession school. So if you have graduated in December 22, May 23, or any time after that, you are eligible for a committee letter if you are planning to matriculate in 2027. Alumni who graduated in May 22 or earlier are ineligible for a committee letter if planning to matriculate in 27. Reapplicants, if you've graduated May 22 or earlier, you are ineligible for a committee letter if planning to matriculate in 27. If you are ineligible for a committee letter, you should not complete an HPA. However, please still access our advising services. That includes one-on-one meetings, looking at rough drafts of your personal statement, vibe checks, everything else is good. You please still come to us for help. Other eligibility requirements. So we need you to have a history of at least one individual advising appointment during your undergraduate career with a pre-professional advisor prior to March 30th of the application year. So this means by March 30th, 2026, you need to have come into our office at least once. Pre-Health 101 does not count as individual advising, nor does drop-in appointments. If you haven't had a meeting with us yet, that's fine. You should probably come in and meet with us, especially because, spoiler alert, the month of March is very busy for us. So if you haven't made an appointment yet, try and come in, and we recommend scheduling by March 1st. Okay, that's one. 2, complete or be scheduled to complete an undergraduate degree at Johns Hopkins University. 3, be in resident as a full-time enrolled undergrad student at Johns Hopkins University for a minimum of 4 semesters. Complete a minimum of 4 pre-med or advanced science courses from Johns Hopkins. This does not include AP credit. comply with our HPA submission deadlines as established by our office, and submit the 3-letter minimum, 6-letter maximum individual letter of recommendation requirements by the communicated deadline. So what are those letter of recommendation requirements? All right, friends. Sorry, give me a second. There we go. My computer is not agreeing with me. There we go. To receive a committee letter, you have to first submit your HPA by the indicated deadline. Now let's get to our letters of recommendation. We require 2 academic letters from you. And these are letters from an instructor who has taught you in a course and graded you A through F. Unfortunately, this does not include your research for credit courses. So these are 2 letters from Johns Hopkins professors. One of them must be a science or engineering professor. The other can be a science and engineering professor, but it does not have to be. So if you have 2 science letters, great. If you have 1 science letter, 1 non-science letter, also fine. So those are your 2 required academic letters. Then we require 1 non-academic letter, and this is from your medically relevant experience. So a doctor you've shadowed with, a supervisor from your clinical volunteering, any other clinically relevant volunteering or employment. This does not include clinical research settings unless there was direct patient contact. So those are your 3 required, 1 clinical, 2 academic. We give you room for an additional 3 other letters. This could be anything from your PI, coaches, mentors, someone you've worked with in your volunteer life, anyone who can gas you up and explain why you should go to grad school. You should submit all of your documents as requested by us by our indicated deadlines. Let's go to our next slide. So letters of recommendation. We've already touched on this a little briefly, and if you go back in our notes, we do have guide 2 on our website and both in the Zoom notes earlier. And in guide 2, we discuss basically how to approach your professors, how to ask for a letter of recommendation. As I put in our notes earlier, please don't be afraid to talk to them. This is their job. This is what they get paid for. We will be validating requirements previously mentioned. As always, request your letters well in advance of applying and follow up. And your letters of recommendation should be required, recent, and relevant. So by March, like we said earlier, the people you put in your HPA, if it changes, that's fine. But as I always tell my advisees, by March, when you turn your HPA in, you should have an idea of who you're going to ask. Your letters of recommendation are due to us by July 30th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. All right, and I think now it is Omena's turn, and she will discuss what the committee letter process looks like.
Yes, I want to add 2 things before Omena goes. One, if you are not eligible for a committee letter because you're an alumni who graduated before 2022, as we indicated in the previous slide, know that this does not negatively impact you in the cycle. That is a policy by the institution that will not be a negative implication in your application cycle. So fret not. It's fine. Schools are aware that we have these policies, and if they ask in your application, in your secondaries or anywhere, why you did not receive a committee letter, you would say you were ineligible due to the policy that we hold, and that is how you can communicate that. You will not be negatively impacted in the cycle. Also note that while the hard deadline for letters of rec is July 30th, we encourage you to speak to your letter writers, like Katie said, early, and also turn in those letters of rec by end of June to be in the early framework. But you do have until July, and we do encourage students to prioritize quality if it means waiting. So just if you have questions about what is good timing, depending on your particular circumstance, definitely come to advising and talk about that.
Okay, thank you, Zuri. Hi, Amena here. We've heard about the committee letter process, and I'm pretty much just going to go over what we consider the committee letter process. And before we do that, we're going to go over some important things that we absolutely need you to know. For the SMA, the SurveyMonkey apply, you should absolutely use your non-JHU email for the SMA HPA process. The best practice is to make a new email account strictly for this, just so you can keep tabs on anything regarding your application through the SMA HPA process. We also encourage you to constantly check your emails from pre-prop. We understand that things slip through the cracks, but absolutely check your spam. If you have to set a reminder on your phone to check your email and check your spam, then absolutely do that. Ensure that you're thorough and also ensure that you have completed all sections, as you cannot edit anything once you have submitted. So just ensure that you go through everything from top to bottom and from bottom to top. Also ensure that when you submit, you download the HPA just for your records. Again, you would probably need it for whatever reason, or honestly, just to go over it if you feel like it. So just ensure that you download once you submit. And then moving on to the committee letter process, what exactly does this mean? You've heard about the committee letter a lot, and you're probably wondering what this is. Think of the committee letter process as the procedure required by JHU and the office pre-prob for applicants to obtain this committee letter that we've been talking about. So think of it as you're giving us something and we're bringing out something out of that. It's more like input and output. We've talked about the letters of recommendation, the HPA, the SMA, the committee letter. Again, to just go over this briefly, the HPA basically refers to the internal process for pre-prob, and we pretty much just need you to we collect your demographic information, your academic record, your extracurricular, your community service, and everything else that has been talked about prior to this. It pretty much just mirrors the AMCAS application, in the sense that some of the information that we ask you to provide are very similar to the information that you would enter during your application, whether that's AMCAS, ACROMAS, TMD, SAS, whatever health profession school that you're applying to. And then we've also talked about the SMA, which is the application platform that we use for students to submit the HPA. We would go over how to use that subsequently. Specific information about the SMA would be sent to you. And then again, the committee letter. So the information collected from the HPA would be referenced in your committee letter. It pretty much just introduces who you are as an applicant. Think of it as a cover letter, and it shares what makes you a compelling applicant. It discusses what has shaped you, your interest in whatever health professions you want to do, medicine, dentistry, whatever that is, and also highlights your competencies. Think of it as, again, it is not a letter of recommendation, more like we use it to rate you or rank you. Oh, sorry, we don't use it to rate or rank you as an applicant. It's just like a cover letter, just introducing you and presenting you as an applicant. And of course, again, the letters of recommendation. You probably hear us say LORs a lot. If we say the LOR, we mean letters of recommendation. Health profession schools value perspectives from third parties just to understand who you are outside your, I guess, your opinion of yourself. So definitely download guide 2 for the letters of recommendation. And like everyone else has said, start to reach out to your recommenders early on and don't wait till 1 or 2 weeks to the deadline. Also keep in mind that by December 2nd, at around 5 p.m. Eastern time, we will send you an email announcing the med school entry year for the we'll send you an email for the med school entry year for 2026-2027 application cycle. So just again, keep your eyes open and check your email. And before Davina goes into the timeline again, just some things for you to keep in mind while you go through the committee letter process. And even when you're submitting your primaries and your secondaries, stay organized. If you need to create a spreadsheet for yourself just to be able to keep tabs of everything that you need to do, absolutely do that. Whether it's electronic, you have to write it down, do that, meet deadlines. We're going to be working with a lot of deadlines here. And you want to ensure that you're on time at every point in time because you being 2 or 3 days late could honestly affect whether it is the internal process or the external process. So just ensure that you have your deadlines already. So if you have to put that in your calendar, absolutely do that. Again, we keep emphasizing checking and reading your emails. Things slip through the cracks. Check your emails, check your spam, set a reminder to constantly check, just so you know you are aware of anything that we send out. And also address all involved in the application process in a professional manner. We know that things can get very tiring and you might be stressed out, but just ensure that you maintain professionalism. And finally, establish good verbal and nonverbal communication. Make sure that if you're speaking with anyone, whether it's us or whether it's during your interviews, you make eye contact, you shake hands, you express gratitude, and overall just be as professional as you can be. Again, this is going to follow you for the rest of your career, so you don't want to have a reputation that is classified as rude or unapproachable. And then Davina is going to move on to the timeline for application. We're supposed to discuss this earlier, but again, we completely missed that, but she's going to go over that again.
Okay, so we're going to go over the timeline in some depth. So in November, where we are now, you're attending the applicant kickoff session. So that's fantastic. Good job for coming tonight. Oh, sorry about that video. So good job for coming out tonight. That is one of your first steps in this process. You want to begin thinking about your letters of recommendation and who you are going to ask or who you might ask for letters of recommendation. I know that we've had a couple of questions about letters of recommendation in the chat, and some of them that I think that I can address here. Your letters of recommendation do not affect, like the submission of your letters of recommendation, do not affect the submission of your primary application. You can submit your primary application without having your letters of recommendation in. Also your letters of recommendation, um, depending on how the school sends out secondaries, does not affect your receiving secondaries either. I'm going to talk a bit about more about that in this application timeline. So in November, you should also be applying for or looking into the financial assistance program or the fee assistance program um, for both medical or dental, depending on your application. Where you're applying, but essentially the fee assistance program you should apply for before you register for any of the standardized tests that you would need to register for, so the MCAT or the DAT, as any type of fee assistance that you may receive the for the standardized test cannot is not retroactive. So if you sign up for the test beforehand and then you received the fee assistance, you will have paid full price essentially for the test. You will not be able to use the fee assistance retroactively. So if you think that you might qualify for the fee assistance program, that link was dropped earlier in the chat. We can drop it in there again. Definitely look into that and make sure that you apply early. December, January, and February, you're going to be working on the health professions application or the HPA, which opens through SurveyMonkey Apply, SMA. So you'll be working on that for quite a bit. So you have more than enough time and ample time to be able to work on this. We get lots of questions about whether or not we will not write a committee letter for someone based off of GPA or based off of MCAT. That we do not have any cutoffs for GPA, for MCAT, for the committee letter. However, our deadlines are very firm. So if you do not submit for first time applicants your HPA by March 30th, that will result in you not receiving a committee letter. So please do be on top of those deadlines. Like Omena talked about, you need to use a calendar. If you need to have a reminder on there, you do have quite a few months to be able to complete that HPA. So in March, the HPA deadline for first-time applicants is March 30th. So you will be submitting that. Please try to submit it before March 30th. People run into technical issues. We get all types of emails at the 11th hour, so please don't let that be you. and set a date a bit earlier than March 30th for that deadline for you. In March, we'll also have a personal statement workshop where we'll discuss different elements of the personal statement and also give you an opportunity to do some free writing and work on that. We partner with the Writing Center on that personal statement workshop. And then you'll be working on a draft of your personal statement during that time or begin working on that draft. And at that point, you should also ask for your letters of recommendation by now. One of the questions I think in the chat as well was if you submit your HPA and your letters of recommendation, who you would like to write for you changes, do you need to resubmit? No, you do not. There will be a separate section for your final list of letter writers. So what you're going to be working on in the HPA in terms of your letters of recommendation is a tentative letter of recommendation section. So those who are in that tentative one that you do in March can still be on your final list, but if there are any changes between then, between March and your actual final list, you'll have the opportunity to be able to put in a actual final list. In April, we have a number of different application support workshops to help you with different parts of the application, and also to keep you on track so that you're not hopefully more overwhelmed in June with seeing like the application for the first time. So we want to make sure that we introduce you to the application over time, so that when you get to June, you feel pretty comfortable with what you're putting on your application. We'll also continue working with you on personal statements. We'll have opportunities for you to be able to get feedback from us on your personal statement, as well as feedback from the Writing Center with whom we partner as well. You should be taking your MCAT, DAT, or GRE by April. So for those of you taking the MCAT, that actually takes quite a bit of time to score. So if you are taking your MCAT in April, it takes about a month to score. You would have your score in May. So taking it a little bit later doesn't really give you too much room if you wanted to retake the test. Um, and it doesn't really give you too much room if you take it later than that to have it as an initial part of your application. So we encourage you to take them in the earlier months and to really be thinking about taking that test by April, the latest. If your timeline is not working out in that way and you want to talk through what your timeline will look like, that's a great reason to make an appointment and meet with an advisor. So in May, that's the timeline for the situational judgment test and secondaries. So situational judgment tests are just what they sound like. They are an opportunity for you to show the health profession schools how you think about ethical situations that they propose to you and how you would move forward with that and how that aligns with their values as an institution as well. So it's not necessarily something that you can overly prepare for in terms of content, but it is something that you can become familiar with. There are two main situational judgment tests for those looking to enter into medical school, being Casper and Preview. So as you're looking into schools that you're interested in, you'll see whether or not they require or recommend one of those situational judgment tests, and you should be thinking about when you would want to take those tests as well. In May, at the end of May, primary applications open. You can begin submitting your primary applications in late May, early June. And the HPA deadline for anyone who is a reapplicant is May 30th. So you'll be submitting your HPA for any reapplicants by that May 30th deadline. In June, you're going to finish up your primary applications. We do have a June 30th deadline of submitting your unverified application to us through SMA. And what we mean by unverified application is when you complete your primary application, and you submit it, it then goes into a queue for AMCAS or the other application services to verify the information that they have received from you. So we don't need the verified application that will come a few weeks later after you submit. We want the unverified application. That's what you submitted to the application service to begin with. You're gonna, after you submit that, you hit submit on that primary application, you're just gonna give it a couple of hours and it'll give you a PDF with a timestamp on it. We want that timestamp. So you want to give it a couple of hours after you submit so that we can have the timestamp on there so that we know when you submitted your primary application. June 30th is a hard deadline. We want you to submit your primary application to every application service to which you are applying. So that means if you're applying MD and DO, we want you to submit both of those applications by June 30th, which means that you need to make the decision that you'll be applying to MD and DO by that June 30th. If you're in July and you've now decided that you're going to apply DO, you're past the June 30th deadline to get the committee letter sent to them. During that time, you can also be thinking about pre-writing your secondary apps. We will talk about this in a bit more detail in the spring as well. But your secondary applications are essentially the supplemental questions that come from the medical schools after they receive your verified application. And those secondary questions are really important because they really are the questions from each individual school that really shows what they value. You'll look to complete your SJTs by the end of June. And then in July, you're going to be working on those secondary applications, take other situational judgment tests that you may not have been able to take prior to that. And for us, letters of recommendation and the fee assistance program documents are due in SMA. So if you receive the fee assistance and we're looking to reimburse you for that, the $85 HPA fee, you need to submit that by July 30th to receive that. And then in August, you're going to complete your secondary applications by early August and then begin interview prep.
Okay, I think this is me actually. All right, so we've given you some detail on the timeline. And in the time that we have left, I know we've been answering questions in the chat, so you can continue to throw some questions in the chat. We are going to go over the SurveyMonkey Apply platform, how to access it, and how to use it. So this session is being recorded, so I'm going to kind of flow through this. I highly encourage that you rewatch this, even if you fast forward it to this part as you go through the application and follow the steps that we have here. If there's any reason you hit any obstacles, obviously technology does its thing sometimes and things don't necessarily work and people have errors. You can feel free to reach out to us at preprofessional@jhu.edu and we will try to troubleshoot that for you. But for the most part, particularly those that are first-time applicants, you should not have any issues creating this. So just to remind you of what Omena talked about earlier, you do want to make sure you access the SMA platform with a non-JHU email for the cycle. And like we highly encourage everyone is probably start an email that you will use for the cycle because you will get a lot of emails between us and professional programs and you don't want to miss information that has particularly that communicate hard deadlines and things that are non-negotiable about this application cycle. So please note you will receive the SMA link in the EY27 cycle start email. That email will go out latest by December 1st with details on how to access the site, as well as a link to the recording. So tell your friends, tell everybody you know, the email is coming. It has not been sent. The kickoff session is today, but the email to access the platform to do your HPA will be sent by December 1st. So the SurveyMonkey Apply platform, I think it's a pretty intuitive site. It's pretty easy to use. You will have a link that will bring you to a home page. As you can see, it is the JHU Homewood Campus HPA page where you will register the circled dot. I don't know where let's see if I have a little pointer. Let's do a little laser. Okay, we'll do some interactive. So here you see there is register. You're going to go ahead and register using a non-JHU email. And you're going to be asked this information. For student ID, you can use your JED ID. And of course, you have to authenticate. I believe SMA had an update and they might be adding a two-step, just like all of our other apps have added. So there's going to be an element where you're asked to add some kind of email, additional email for recovery and or a phone number. So your next step, once you've registered and you've gone to your email and verified, so just like accessing a new site, usually a link is sent to your email to verify your identity and start your account. You would come back to your SMA browser and you would look at view programs. So there's going to be multiple program options. However, there is an eligibility profile quiz-like mechanism that's going to ask you a series of questions so that you end up in the correct program. So here, what is important is that anyone who is looking for a committee letter from the pre-professional office, you select pre-professional application, pre-prof health professions application, not post-bac, not moral political economy major, the first choice. So make sure you select the right application. Then you will be given the option of starting the HPA, as you see here. And then we want to jump to, there's going to be multiple section or task, as they're called in the system, where you will have sections. So you are able to access all of these sections, and you don't have to go in order. You can start in any section that you would like to, but do understand that this tentative letters of rec section is a key component to accessing where you will eventually request your letters of rec. So we highlight this section because this is the only section that is truly dependent on you being able to access the letter of rec section. So you must complete the tentative letter of rec section. Like Davina said, it does not need to be written in stone. This can be a tentative list, and until you know for sure, you can wait to access the next portal, and I will have directions on how to access that as well. As you can see in the tentative letter of rec section, again, there is no email because you're not requesting in the tentative letter of rec section in your HPA. And so once you complete this, you will have an opportunity to mark as complete. You must mark as complete in order to gain access to the letter of rec and materials request section. At any point, if you would like to edit your tentative letter of rec, you can do so. But remember, we are going to use the finalized list, which we will also show a screenshot of, to verify your letters before we finalize your packet. So again, use the tentative letters of rec section as an exercise and a tool to think through which letter of recs you want to use, but know that if you have not submitted the full HPA, you have the ability to edit any section by simply hitting this 3 ellipses button here and pressing edit, and you can go back and edit that section. So this was just another emphasis that tentative letter of rec, once you submit that and you have the little check here, you're able to access the opening the letter of rec request section. In order for your HPA to be submitted, you need to not only complete every single here, it's actually cut off at the bottom, but you have the fee, the HPA fee as well. There's a task where you submit your payment, but there's also a certification of waiver. You are unable to submit payment until you do your certificate of waiver. You cannot just click all of these and finish and then go to pay. You must read the fine print of the certification and waiver section before you can make a payment. So if you're wondering why you can't find the HPA payment portion in your application, it is probably because you did not do the certification and waiver for it. So At the end, once all of your sections are complete, you must hit submit. We had a number of students who finished everything and did not hit submit. If you don't hit submit, we don't know you're applying. Okay, so please make sure you hit submit a final submission so that it officially submits your full application. The next area is opening the letters of request and applications materials section. So technically, you're utilizing SMA for two different applications, the HPA and then the letters of rec. This is all together for us in terms of finalizing your committee letter, but for you, it will appear as two different programs. So once you complete the tentative letters of rec, again, you don't have to complete all of the other sections. You would then go and you've submitted it, and there's a green check mark. You would go to programs. And once you go to programs, you will see that there is another option of a program now available, which is called letters of request and application materials. Here you will press apply. I will just inform you that the deadline is July 30th. However, it looks like July 31st because of the internal mechanisms of the site. But again, please be sure that you submit your materials by June 30th or it will be marked late or unable to submit. So the applicant waiver form, there's a waiver form here. You must complete the waiver form before you can access uploading any other thing. And this is, again, the fine print, making sure you understand what is accessible to you and what is not pertaining to the materials that you, that the letters of rec that you have uploaded on your behalf. So this applicant waiver form is due by June 30th, and so is the unverified primary application. You have access to all of these areas, but these first two areas are due by June 30th. If they are late, your application will be late. So again, referring back to the timeline that Davina talked about the primary application application that you submit to your health professions program, that's AMCAS, ADSAS, ACOMAS, TMDSAS. You must submit those applications to those central applications by June 30th and upload the copy, one copy. I wanted to also add that for ACOMAS and I think Texas, you can actually download all of the school's applications that you're applying to. We just need one copy to verify that you have a primary application uploaded. Of all the systems in which you're applying, you are able to upload all those files in this task. You must do this by June 30th. So just a note about transcripts, all applicants are required to upload a Hopkins unofficial transcript. We do not need the official one. However, if you have an official transcript, that is also fine. You can upload it. We will take the official one, but we don't want you to have to pay for it to upload it here. Unofficial will do just fine. Current students, please wait until your spring grades have been posted to upload your unofficial Hopkins transcript. And then all non-Hopkins transcripts should be uploaded to this section as well. There's additional transcripts. This deadline is July 30th. So additional materials are July 30th. You will see these deadlines indicated in each task as well. So also note that now for the final list of letters of recommendation. So you had the tentative list in your HPA, again, not written in stone, more like sand. Wave can come and change it, right? But in this letter of request section, this is where we need to know the accurate list of your writers. Then here you'll see that there's the letter request form where you actually send the request to the letter writers. So there are instructions. They're not there for decoration. We hugely encourage you to read all of the information that precedes the sections so that you know what to do. Particularly here, the orange arrow is pointing for reapplicants only. If you received a committee letter in the past and you have individual letters that were saved on your for your behalf, or you didn't finish, maybe you started an HPA and decided not to apply, but you had letters of rec uploaded on your behalf. We do have letters. We did save those letters, but you need to follow these directions in order for those letters to be provided for you. We did not hold, if you did not have letter writers submit letters to SMA in a previous cycle within EY 24, 25, or 26, we do not have those letters. So only if they were submitted in the past, we have them. If you had a committee letter in the past, we also have your individual letters. So please follow these directions to make this request. The blue arrow is your request um, option. I know we're over time, so we're going to wrap up soon, but you're going to request the recommendation here. Also here you have the pre-professional, oh, sorry, this is just an example of what you're able to see when you have a letter of rec received. It will notify you that it's received, though you cannot see the content of the letter. If for any reason you decide that you do not want to get a letter from someone you initially requested to, or you're making a change, you just can hit this ellipses button and withdraw the request. If they need the link again because they didn't find it in their email, you can resend it as well. So you do have the ability to edit this as the applicant. And then please note that when you request your letters of rec, please mark as complete. You will not be able to mark as complete until the letters of rec are received. As you can see here, once there's a check mark of all of the letters of rec that are pending that you requested, then you will be able to mark as complete. And finally, you will need to submit your letters of rec section in order by July 30th in order for this section to be fully submitted. So this is just a note of what your letter writers need to know. This message does go out to them, but we kindly ask you to remind your letter writers that they must include the length of time and capacity in which they have known you as an applicant, and then also be on a official letterhead or business card needs to be attached to that letter so that there is authentication there, and then include date and signature. Unfortunately, digital signatures conflict with the system a bit, so we highly encourage that they sign it with a wet signature or a regular signature. This is what your file will look like, your platform will look like once you have both sections complete. So this is at the point where you have submitted your letters of rec section. Please allow 4 to 6 weeks for your committee letter to be finalized and uploaded to your central application system. Remember that the 4 to 6 weeks does not start when you submit your HPA in March 30th. It starts after we've received all of your letters of rec and you have submitted here. So once your letters of rec and materials have been uploaded, your 4 to 6 weeks wait begins. This is just extra information. We have an HPA info page, and you can access that up here at Pages, and that will always have links to the videos, to the websites, all of those things. And then, yes, applicant website, Davina.
Yes, so we will have an applicant website that'll be available to you in December. And the applicant website will have all of the deadlines, as well as the letter of recommendation guidelines, all of the information that we talked about. You'll have access to that on the applicant website. So we highly encourage you, please utilize your resources. that we provide to you. We answer a lot of questions. We give you a lot of information for questions that you don't know that you have yet. So we really, really encourage you to use the resources that we provide for you throughout this process. So quickly, the cost of applying, we want to make sure that you're sure about this, and that you're really ready to apply because it is an expensive process. We have the HPA fee for the internal HPA, but you're also thinking about your MCAT fees, the DAT fees if you're taking the DAT. Primary applications can vary from $175 plus, depending on the application service, and then additional fees for the secondary applications that you'll be submitting. If you're traveling to interviews, most interviews these days are virtual, but you may run into an interview where you need to travel or go to the school for the interview. So you want to be thinking about that as well as cost for interviewing attire as well if you don't have that available. So we want to make sure that you are aware that this is an expensive process, and we know it's an expensive process. Um, and so we want to make sure that you are ready to make this commitment for your time and money. So resources, again, we have a lot of resources on our website, but also the application services that you're applying to have lots of information. Please invest some time into reading from these sources. I know that you all are reading on Reddit, but please read from these informational sources as I have found are a better source of information than individual experiences that you might find on the internet. So please make sure that you're referencing these resources as well. So help us help you. As we streamline the committee letter process, we understand that sometimes the system has errors and that can be challenging to you. So that's why we ask you to make sure that you go in early to make sure that everything is working. So if you have questions like, I didn't get a confirmation email, should I have by now? Or this link is not working properly, please do let us know. Feedback about our systems are encouraged, and it will help us to address any issues that come up to help make your process easier. However, questions about application status will only be addressed if it is past the communicated deadline. So if you are within the 4 to 6 weeks and you're feeling anxious about it, we understand that this is an anxious process, but it does require that that you exercise patience, not only with us, but with the schools that you're applying to as well. There's going to be a portion of time in this application cycle where there's not going to be much for you to do or submit. And I find that one of the biggest struggles students have is exercising patience. So this is going to be an opportunity to do that. I think that I know we're over time by 8 minutes, and that we've also answered a lot of the questions, I think, in the chat. Thank you so much, advisors, for being on the chat and answering the questions. But this recording will be available to everyone beginning in December. Again, the HPA will become available December 2nd. So please enjoy the upcoming break. If you have the upcoming break, if you have questions between now and then that were not answered here and are not about it being released on December 2nd, please feel free to reach out to us. We do ask that if we've communicated deadlines and we're still before that deadline, that you just exercise patience and in this process. But we thank you all for joining us tonight. We love supporting all of you through this process. We understand that it is a hefty thing to take on, and we want to make sure that we can support you and make this as easy for you as possible. So have a great night, everyone. Thank you.